Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I welcome all of you to this Mukti Sangha Japa conference call for the mid-morning session of Sri Caitanya Bhaagavata, which will be given by Her Grace Sagari Mataji. But before moving on to the session, I would like to know who are all present on the call today. Before that, I would like to recite the Vaishnava pranams. Manchakalpatrupasya Kripasindhubhyo Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Anantakoti Vaishnav ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Hare Krishna Mataji. So before moving on to the call, I would like to know who are all present on the call today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Jai Shri Prabhupada, this is Preeti Vilasini Devi Dasi from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you, Mataji, for your warm welcoming. And thank you, Yashamati Priya Mataji, that beautiful chanting.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I did not see Yashomati. I guessed she must have recited, but she was not there. Okay. So she was the one who recited the verses today. Thank you so much to Yashomati Priya Mataji for reciting the Bhagavad Gita verses. Hare Krishna Preeti Vilasini Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devadasi from College Station, Texas.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, temple point to you and all Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Gopika Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I once again welcome all of you to this Mukti Sangha Japa conference call for the mid-morning session of Sri Caitanya Bhaagavata. Before moving on to the session, I would like to read Prabhupada's quote for today. Today is 30 September. Prabhupada has written, "The real preaching is selling books. You should know the tactic how to sell without irritating. What your lecture will do for 3 minutes, but if he reads one page, his life may be turned." Letter to Balimardhan on September 30, 1972. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you so much, dear devotees, for coming on the call for the session of Sri Caitanya Bhagavata. And today's speaker will be Her Grace Shukha Mataji. And the topic is from Caitanya Bhaagvata Antya Kanda, chapter 3, verses 47 to 65. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Sukha Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for giving us your valuable time and association. Over to you, Mataji. Please start with a song, Mataji. This is a request. Very good. Or you can end with a song. No problem.
Yeah, maybe sometime around in the class. Is it okay, Mataji?
Yeah, yes, Mataji.
Yeah.
Both the ways also is fine. First and last also is fine.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Anita Mataji, Preeti Mataji, and all the organizers for giving me an opportunity to speak on this esoteric subject matter. I'm totally unqualified and I've not been regularly attending these classes for the past few months due to various reasons. And I pray at the feet of all the devotees here that I can speak a words of relevance to this topic and glorify Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his close associates as what has been going on in Chaitanya Bhagavata so far. So let me quickly share the PowerPoint and then we'll go from there. One second, Mataji. I'm not able to see my. Okay, no. Okay, I'm seeing it now. Okay. So today we are going to be reading from the Caitanya Bhaagvata, and this is the Antya Kanda, and it deals with a few pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after his sannyas diksha. And there's not a lot of his pastimes after sannyas discussed in detail in Chaitanya Bhaagavata. It mostly covers his childhood and youth pastimes, and a few pastimes of his sannyas diksha, and more details are in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of the pastimes of post sannyas diksha for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we are on the chapter titled Mahaprabhu's Deliverance of Sarvabhauma, an exhibition of his six-armed form, the Shadbhuja form, and journey to Bengal. And we'll be discussing verses 47 through 65. I'd like to start off with the invocation prayers, and I'll be switching between the actual verses and the PPT, so please bear with me as I do that. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So today's verse, it starts off where we left off in the last class, where I'll quickly, try to pick up that verse. So the translation goes like this. We will be doing it with the shloka and translation later, but just to give some idea, if you say that the philosophy of Shankaracharya does not agree with this, then I will quote his words to prove that he desired the service of the Lord. So agree with this, he says here, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, if you say that Shankaracharya does not agree with this, so we'll try to understand, for people like me who may have missed a few classes prior, to understand what this means, what Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is referring to here by saying Shankaracharya does not agree with this. So previously we see how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and the Lord, they meet, and this happens when the Lord, after his sannyas diksha, he decides to go to Jagannath Puri, and there he takes the darshan of the Lord, and then enters into a trance, and he actually falls down to the ground like that in a trance. At that time, we see as the verses, which I've just borrowed these verses from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I'll be mostly doing a reading today because this is very esoteric subject matter, and I thought it would be best to read from the mouth of the Acharyas. So, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell down, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya happened to see him. When the watchman threatened to beat the Lord, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya immediately forbade him. So then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, with the help of his disciples, his students, and other men, he tries to bring Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home. And then all the devotees, they come looking for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then they see that, okay, he's doing fine. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is in a very paternal mood to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. And he says that do not go alone, to the temple like this. You should go with some of my disciples. And he, in fact, advises one of his disciples that they should accompany him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whenever he goes to the temple, because when he looks at it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he goes into the trance and falls down, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya actually feels him and sees that he has acquired all those symptoms of ecstasy, And though he was breathing very, very lightly, but still he could see all the symptoms of ecstasy. And he figured that this is not an ordinary person, because he is like in the highest modes of ecstasy, and that can happen only in pure devotional service to the Lord. So he figures that this is not an ordinary person. And the other reason is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was just 24 when he took the sannyas diksha, and extremely beautiful to look at. Like they say in this Kali Yuga, the two weapons which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us. Does anybody want to share? What are the two weapons Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came with to quell the miseries in Kali Yuga?
Beauty.
Sankirtan.
Yeah,
Beauty.
yeah, very good. Yeah, both of you are right. Sankirtan and beauty. So these two are described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as the weapons, the Shastra with which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to actually dispel the ignorance in this material world, like that. So when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he sees this beautiful young boy, he gets this paternal affection for him. And, he tells Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that I want to take care of you, let me know how I can serve you, like that. So he actually, gives him food and all that. And then he pays obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he says, Namo Narayanaya. So Srila Prabhupada says that in the Mayavad, he, in fact, before this, I'm just giving a brief, background of what happens. So when he sees these ecstatic symptoms in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that he is taken sannyas at a very young age, he gets intrigued. And so he asks, Gopinath Acharya, give me some background of who is this boy, and why is he taken sannyas at such a young age? He's so beautiful, and he's already reached, like ecstatic levels in devotional service. So what's happening? So he just is curious to know. So then Gopinath Acharya gives him some background of how he is from Nadia, and tells him about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father and how he got the Diksha and all that. So that time he understands that, he got it from the Bharati Sampradaya. And so, though Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is in the position of a father to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gives that respect to the ashrama, because sannyas ashrama is the highest ashrama. So even though the person, may be younger in age, but according to the ashrama, we need to pay respects to the devotees of the Lord who have actually taken to that ashrama. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he pays obeisances to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he says Namo Narayanaya. So this is how sannyasis in the Mayavad Sampradaya, they once you reach the sannyas ashram, as we have seen in the previous verses, they are almost like considered to be equal to Narayana. So Prabhupada says in one of the purports that they greet each other like Namo Narayana, like that. But Prabhupada very mockingly says that we know what kind of Narayana that is. So, but at that time, when he says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says this, when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says Namo Narayana and pays obeisances, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he replies, Krishna Matirastu. So at that time, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he understands, though this young boy has taken sannyas in the Bharati Sampradaya, but still he's actually a Vaishnava, because he doesn't, call back in that same way, and he says, Krishna Matirastu. So he understands that this is a Vaishnava, he's a pure devotee, a Vaishnava. And and then there is some argument or some kind of a debate that goes on between Gopinath Acharya and Sarvabhauma Prabhu Bhattacharya, where Bhattacharya wants to say that, where Gopinath Acharya claims and says that he is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Lord himself. So do not question why he has taken sannyas at such a young age, because he's the Lord, he can do anything he pleases. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says that, how can you say that he is the Lord? Where is the Shastric proof, like that? So Gopinath Acharya gets a little upset that why he's asking and questioning the Lord, and he tells that this is only atheists will ask these kind of questions. And And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is like, relax, there's no need to get agitated. We all read Shastras, and there's no harm in getting Shastric proof, to establish that he is the Lord himself. So this kind of a debate goes on, and Gopinath Acharya, they go and tell Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that, see, this is how Sarvabhauma is behaving. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understands the mood, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu deals differently with each of his devotees, and he understands the mood of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And he says that, oh no, he's actually a father figure to me. You shouldn't be talking anything about him. And he goes and he, surrenders, or in some sense, he submits to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And he says, I'm a young sannyasi, and I actually have no knowledge of what is good and what is bad. Therefore, I'm taking shelter of you and accepting you as my spiritual master. So he says because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, like Mataji discussed in yesterday's class, he was a very, very great scholar, and he had that knowledge from Mithila, which people very rarely have. So he was a very, very learned person, and so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu respects his learning and says, in fact, this is some kind of in one sense, some kind of a joke he plays with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya because he likes him and he wants to bring him under his shelter. So he goes and submits to him and says that you have to teach me how I can spread, devotional service to everybody like that. So with that, we will move on to the verses for today. Let me share the verses screen. Yeah, this one, right? 1 second, let me figure it. This one or which one? I don't know. Yeah, this one, sorry. So these are the verses starting, we'll be starting from here for today. यदि बल शंकरेर मत से हनाहे तांड्रा अभिप्राय दास्य तांड्रे मुख काहे यदि बल शंकरेर मत से हनाहे तांड्रा अभिप्राय दास्य तांड्रे मुखे काहे. So as I read the translation earlier, I'll just repeat it for clarity. If you say that the philosophy of Shankaracharya does not agree with this, then I will quote his words to prove that he desired the service of the Lord. And thankfully, we have the commentary of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura, and he writes, although Shankaracharya did not openly say that worship of Krishna is the eternal duty of the living entities, he considered himself like a wave of the ocean. A wave is not the ocean. This was his conviction. Suppressing the dualities or conditional state of the material world does not mean liberation. Actual liberation entails renouncing one's unconstitutional position and becoming situated in one's constitutional position. Therefore, even in some parts of Shankaracharya's philosophy, aversion to devotional service is not seen. Shankara's followers who cannot understand his intentions proudly identify themselves as liberated souls on the strength of the external dress. Actually, giving up external signs like the Shikha and Brahmana thread is not the basis for devotional service. Giving up the Shikha and Brahmana thread while accepting Ekadanda Sannyasa is also not the basis for devotional service. Devotional service to Krishna becomes enhanced by acceptance of Tridanda Sannyasa, not by Ekadanda Sannyasa. After hearing these explanations of Sarvabhauma, Sri Gaurasundara became very pleased because we see, like I mentioned earlier in the previous verses, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he submits to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and says that I want to learn this art of devotional service and how to preach to everybody. He does not say that I want to learn Vedanta or scriptures and become a Nipuna, like a Shastra Nipuna. So that's why Sri Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he explains him, so far he says, at this young age, why did you take, the sannyas diksha? And he recognizes all the symptoms of pure devotional service in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so he's advising him, is like, why do you need the sannyas diksha? You are already into devotional service, so you definitely do not need the sannyas, because the Mayavad sannyas, typically they read like the scriptures, the Vedanta, and try to get into more philosophical, like logical kind of details of it. So the sannyasis, they work at that level, more at a mental level like that. So he recognizes that. And also because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that I would like to learn to preach, the art of devotion service. So Sarvabhauma is giving him all kinds of explanations, and he particularly picks this composition of Sri Shankaracharya. This is called Vishnu Shatpadi Stotram. It's a very, very beautiful stotram. It has only 6 verses. We'll try to sing it at the end of the class. And in fact, the next verse, I will read that, so, we will have some connection with it. Yeah, this is the shloka actually. Sri Shankaracharya has stated as, this is verse 48, Sri Shankaracharya has stated as follows. Satyabhibhedapagame nath tavaham namamaki samudro hitarangakvachana samudro natarangaha. So this is the verse. This is taken from Vishnu Shatpadi Slokam of Sri Shankaracharya. And this, in this shloka, in this stotram, there are 6 verses in which Sri Shankaracharya actually establishes the supremacy of Lord Krishna. And this is quoted here, and also in Hari Bhakti Vilas, also we find mention of these verses there too. So the translation is like this: O Lord. So the previous verse we saw, right, where Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati is saying that, talking about a wave and the ocean. So that verse is actually referring to this wave and ocean. Okay, so that's what we will see. O Lord, although the living entities and the Supreme Brahman are non-different, the living entities are subordinate to you. In other words, their existence is dependent on you. You, however, are not dependent on anyone, although there is no difference between the ocean and its wave. The existence of the waves is dependent on the ocean. The ocean is never dependent on the waves. So this is kind of very easy to understand, right? This analogy. So when there is an ocean, we see a lot of waves, they hit the ocean all the time, and kind of merge into the ocean or join into the ocean. But then we see here that Sri Shankaracharya explains that though the ocean and wave, the waves are part of the ocean, but then the wave is not the ocean. The ocean is the source of the wave, but we cannot say that, the wave is the source of the ocean. Or so we recognize that there are 2 entities, basically the Ishvara and the Jiva, like that. So the Jiva is a part and parcel, like how Srila Prabhupada explains also in several places, is a part and parcel of the Supreme Whole, like that. So the same thing is explained in this verse, although there have been some other interpretations too for this verse, in a different way. I don't know if I should be mentioning them. They could be a little confusing.
Mataji, please do mention, because when we are trying to understand these verses and everyone is putting in a lot of time because these verses are difficult to understand. So please give us as much information as you have.
Yeah, something which, okay, sure, whatever I can, I will share. Something which I read was, how Mayavads interpret this is, there were 2 interpretations to this. One is that the waves, they merge with the ocean. So that way, the Jiva merges. That's the concept of Mayavadis, right? They think that ultimately the Jivas, they merge with the Brahman and they become nothing. That's one interpretation I read. And then the other interpretation is both, like Mataji was explaining yesterday. So wave and ocean are basically water bodies, right? So water is the base substance, like the Brahman, okay? And then the ocean and the waves are manifestations of this Brahman. So, and then the ocean is compared to the Ishvara, and the wave is compared to the Jiva, and they are both considered like some kind of a manifestation of the Brahman, the the non-existent Brahman, like that, the invisible Brahman, like that. So that is another explanation also, which is given by Mayavads. But in so many other commentary, in so many other translations, I'm not gone into any commentaries of Advaitavad, but the translations I see actually are on the same lines as that have been explained here to us by the acharyas too. So this is the correct translation, that although there is no difference between the ocean and its waves, the existence of the waves is dependent on the ocean. The ocean is never dependent on the waves. So this is the correct explanation which Shankaracharya wanted to give, but it has morphed into so many things in the due course of time. So, but this, like I mentioned, this set of 6 verses, and then the consequent verses which we're going to be seeing after this are, in some sense, when I read the shloka, the Shatpati, Shatpati Stotram, they appear to have been taken right from there. Like the next, he talks about, protection and things like that. The consequent verses after this verse Satyapi Bheda Pagamenatha actually talk of those details in that stotram. So we will try to recite the stotram today. It's very beautiful, glorifying the Lord and his pastimes, like that. So yeah, in the Mayavada Shatadushani 48 and 10, this Mayavada Shatadushani is a book authored by Madhvacharya. So it is it actually, like Dushani, like it actually uh, uh, talks against, or all these kind of Mayavad philosophies and their assumptions and things like that. So it quells those kind of Mayavad theories and assumptions in this book. It is stated, avataritvad ईशोऽपि द्विविधः स्मृतभक्ताभक्तविभेदेन जीवोऽपि bhavati dvidha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests himself in 2 features. So this is the Dvaitavad, as very clearly explained by Sri Madhvacharya. In his original form as the source of all incarnations, and in his many Vishnu Tattva incarnations. Srila Prabhupada also describes in all our scriptures, we have seen that, the Krishna and his direct expansions, the direct expansions are called the Vishnu Tattva. And then the separated, the Vibhinna expansions are the Jiva Tattva. The same thing is being explained here. The many living entities may also be divided into 2 groups: the devotees who are free from the influence of the illusory energy, and the non-devotees who are bound by the illusion of Maya. यथा समुद्रे वहवस्तरङ्गस्तथा वयं ब्रह्मणि भूरि जीवः भवेत् तरङ्गो न कदाचित् अब्धिः त्वं ब्रह्म कस्मात् भवितासि जीवा. Innumerable waves splash within the great ocean, and in the same way, countless spirit souls exist within the Supreme. They exist. This word is key. The Supreme Soul, the spirit souls, they exist within. They do not merge and disappear. Exist within the Supreme Brahman. O individual spirit soul, a single wave can never become the ocean. So how do you think you will become the Supreme Brahman? So this is so beautiful, right? It is taken from Mayavad Shatadushani. There are so many nice, such beautiful explanations. I wanted to give some more, insight into this topic. Insight in the sense something I read. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. So this is very, very, similar to the meeting of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Prakashananda Saraswati. So this happens after this pastime, like after the Jagannath Puri, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally makes it to, Vrindavan, like that. And that time on the way, he actually meets this Mayavad, group of Mayavad sannyasis, and Prakashananda Saraswati is like the head of them. And that time he preaches to Prakashananda Saraswati. So this, we'll try to go here and also see, because they are very, very similar, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preaches and quells Mayavad in that sense. So like it says here, the Mayavadi sannyasi, I mean, this is quite obvious. Let me read from my notes maybe. Yeah, 1 second, Mataji. At the time, during the year 1515, Varanasi was headed by a great sannyasi of the Mayavad school named Sripad Prakashanand Saraswati. When the Lord was at Varanasi, the people in general became more attracted to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on account of his mass Sankirtana movement. Wherever he visited, especially the Kashi Vishwanath temple, thousands of pilgrims would follow him. Some were attracted by his bodily features, and others were attracted by his melodious songs glorifying the Lord. The Mayavadi sannyasis designate themselves as Narayana or Brahman. Some people who saw the Lord in his Sankirtana party considered him to be actually Narayana. Give me 1 second, Mother. And this report reached to the great sannyasi Prakashananda. When the news of the Lord reached Prakashananda, he knew that the Lord was a Vaishnava sannyasi, and therefore he minimized the value of the Lord before those who brought him the news. He deprecated the activities of the Lord because of his preaching the Sankirtana movement, which was, in his opinion, nothing but religious sentiment. Prakashananda was a profound student of the Vedanta, and he advised his followers to give attention to the Vedanta and not to indulge in Sankirtana. We also see here, right, that Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya is telling Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that for devotional service, why do you need this sannyasa? It's not like you're interested to read Vedanta scriptures and all this, logic and philosophy. So why do you need, like they don't think too high, that they think that, to take the Lord's name is easy. Anybody can do it. You don't need a sannyas order for this. So similarly, Prakashananda also thinks very low of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He thinks that this is some, Vaishnava sannyasi who's just trying to dance and sing and dance around like that. One devotee, Brahmana, who became a devotee of the Lord, did not like the criticism of Prakashananda, and he went to the Lord to express his regrets. He told the Lord that when he uttered the Lord's name before the sannyasi Prakashananda, the latter strongly criticized the Lord. After this, a great meeting was arranged by the devotees of the Lord, in which all the sannyasis were invited, including the Lord and Prakashananda Saraswati. In this meeting, both the scholars, like the Lord and Prakashananda, had a long discourse on the spiritual values of the Sankirtan movement, and a summary is given below. Yeah, I'm reading it from an article. The great Mayavadi sannyasi Prakashananda. So these are the interesting questions he poses in front of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we can learn from. Sannyasi Prakashananda inquired from the Lord as to the reason for his preferring the Sankirtana movement than the study of the Vedanta Sutra. Prakashananda said that it is the duty of a sannyasi to read the Vedanta Sutra. What caused the Lord to indulge in Sankirtana? After this inquiry, the Lord submissively replied, I have taken to Sankirtana movement instead of the study of Vedanta because I am a great fool. The Lord thus represented himself as one of the numberless fools of this age who are absolutely incapable of studying the Vedanta philosophy. So we see the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's so difficult for us to even read Srila Prabhupada's books, right? I don't know. I mean, speaking of myself, all of you are scholars here, but it's so difficult to pick up one of Prabhupada's book and read it from beginning to end. I mean, that's my Kali Yuga brain and, distraction level. And I mean, what to speak of reading Vedanta and, Vedas and things like that. So the Lord has so mercifully come to give us this Sankirtana moment. And we sit, there are so many times, so many beautiful festivals like Harinam Kirtan Mela and so many other festivals which are organized by devotees. And, easily they are giving away the Harinam, which is the highest, the pinnacle of devotional service. So that's how easy Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made it for us. I've taken to the Sankirtana, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I've taken to the Sankirtana movement instead of the study of Vedanta because I am a great fool. The Lord thus represented himself as one of the numberless fools. Yeah, I read this. The Lord thus continued, and because I am a great fool, my spiritual master forbade me to play with Vedanta philosophy. He said that it is better that I chant the holy name of the Lord, for that would deliver me from material bondage. In this age of Kali, there is no other religion but the glorification of the Lord by the utterance of his holy name, and that is the injunction of all the revealed scriptures. And the he talks about the Maha Mantra. And when Prakashananda Saraswati, he hears this comment from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says that, okay, it's fine, you go about chanting the holy name of the Lord. But what's the wrong in reading scriptures? So why are you so against the Vedanta? So this is the next question. Because Prakashananda understands that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like he was called Nimai Pandit, right? Even at a very young age, he showed a lot of scholarly symptoms. And so he had heard about him that, Nimai Pandit is a very great scholar, very great logician. He could defeat anybody with logic and things like that. So he knew that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is just posing a humble stance there and he knows everything. So he knew that. And so he asked, so why, you can do Sankirtan, but also read the Vedas, Vedanta. What's the problem with that? Now the Lord actually, he reveals, he says that Vedanta Sutra consists of transcendental words or sounds uttered by the transcendental personality of Godhead. The message of the Upanishads is expressed in the Vedanta Sutra, and what is said there directly is certainly glorified. Whatever interpretations have been given by Sripad Shankaracharya have no direct bearing on the sutra, and therefore such commentation spoils everything. So now he gives a real reason as to why he doesn't want, people to take, and because the commentaries of Sripad Shankaracharya on the Vedanta Sutra are the most popular, and he knew that this spoils everything. He says that this spoils everything. The word Brahman indicates the greatest of all, which is full with transcendental opulences, superior to all. Brahman is ultimately the personality of Godhead, and he is covered by indirect interpretations and established as impersonal. Everything that is in the spiritual world is full of transcendental bliss, including the form, body, place, and paraphernalia. Anyone who accepts the transcendental body of the personality of Godhead as something mundane commits the greatest blasphemy. So that's why he speaks like this is what he in fact even conveys to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Like, let me quickly share that thing too. It's very interesting how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives away why the Mayavad philosophy is lacking in many ways like that. Let me quickly share the screen. Yeah. This is from the Chaitamrita. Sorry, you can close your eyes for a minute. I'm scrolling too fast. It may not make you dizzy, so feel free to look away for some time. Yeah, these are the verses starting from 168. Let's quickly, try to understand. It's so beautifully explained. We'll start from here. Mataji, would you like to take turns to read? If it's not a problem, please. Anybody inspired? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, I can also
The
read.
Buddhists,
Preeti
yeah.
Mataji, go ahead, Mataji. After you, I'll go. Yeah.
The Buddhists do not recognize the authority of the Vedas, therefore they are considered agnostics. However, those who have taken shelter of the Vedic scriptures yet preach agnosticism in accordance with the Mayavad philosophy are certainly more dangerous than Buddhists. Although the Buddhists are directly opposed to Vaishnava philosophy, it can easily be understood that the Shankarites are more dangerous because they accept the authority of the Vedas and get contrary to Vedic instruction. Vedashraya Nastikyavada means agnosticism under the shelter of Vedic culture and refers to the monastic philosophy of the Mayavadis. Lord Buddha abandoned the authority of the Vedic literature and therefore rejected the ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices recommended in the Vedas. His Nirvana philosophy means stopping all material activities. Lord Buddha did not recognize the presence of transcendental forms of the spiritual activities beyond the material world. He simply described voidism beyond this material existence. The Mayavadi philosophers offer lip service to Vedic authority but try to escape the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. They concoct some idea of a transcendental position and call themselves Narayana or God. However, God's position is completely different from their concoction. Such Mayavadi philosophers consider themselves above the influence of karma kanda, fruitive activities, and their reactions. For them, the spiritual world is equated with the Buddhist voidism. There is very little difference between impersonalism and voidism. Voidism can be directly understood, but the impersonalism enunciated by Mayavadi philosophers do not know about the spiritual world and spiritual beings. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, ye anya aravindaksha vikmukta maninasya.
Yeah, go ahead, read the shloka and the translation, maybe if there is one, and then I thought we can move because there are a few verses. For want of time, I wasn't trying to read the whole purport, but
Yeah, that's enough.
happy
Yeah,
to.
you can continue, Mataji.
Is it okay, Preeti?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Do you want to finish this shloka? It's a beautiful one.
ये अन्यविन्दाक्षविमुक्तमानिनस्त्वय्यश्च भावाह्वाद् अविशुद्धबुद्धया आरुह्य कृच्छ्रेण परं पदं तथा पतन्ति यदो अनाधृत यस्मद् अङ्ग्रयाः. The intelligence of the Mayavadis is not purified, and therefore, even though they practice austerities for self-realization, they cannot remain within the impersonal Brahmajyoti. Consequently, they fall down again to this material.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there is a like series of verses. We will just try to read the important, like how he has talked about. I'm just trying to, for want of time. Okay. Yeah, this is something, it may be interesting for us to understand how the Mayavadis work their philosophy. Anybody would like to read this verse and translation? The translation and the purport?
Yeah, I would like to read Mataji.
Go ahead.
Translation. The Vedanta Sutra aims at establishing that the cosmic manifestation has come into being by the transformation of the inconceivable potency of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. For a further explanation of a Parinamavada, refer to Adilila 7th chapter, verse 122 to 133.
Yeah, we can continue reading a little bit more. Yeah, so what Parinamavada is being explained. Mataji, would you like to continue or you?
Yes, Mataji. Translation. The touchstone, after touching iron, produces volumes of gold without being changed. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of the Godhead manifests himself as the cosmic manifestation by his inconceivable potency. Yet, he remains unchanged in his eternal transcendental form. Should I go with the purport, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, we should. I think we should.
According to the commentary of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, the purpose of the Janmade Asya verse is in the Vedanta Sutra is to establish that the cosmic manifestation is the result of the transformation of the potencies of Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is the master of innumerable eternal energies, which are unlimited. Sometimes these energies are manifested and sometimes they are not. In any case, all energies are under his control. Therefore, he is the original energetic, the abode of all energies. A common brain in the conditioned state cannot conceive of how these inconceivable energies abide in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how he exists in his innumerable forms as the master of both spiritual and material energies, how he is the master of both manifest and the potential powers, and how contradictory potencies can abide in him. As long as the living entity is within this material world in the condition of illusion, he cannot understand the activities of the inconceivable energies of the Lord. Thus, the Lord's energies, though factual, are simply beyond the power of the common brain to understand. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I'm just trying to. Yeah, I will read these parts. From the Shastras, we learn that there is a stone or jewel called a touchstone that can transform iron into gold. Although the touchstone turns iron into gold many times, it remains in its original condition. If such a material stone can maintain its inconceivable energy after producing volumes of gold, certainly the Supreme Personality of Godhead can remain in his original Sachidananda form and create the cosmic world. So the Parinamvada, the transformation principle of the Mayavadis says that once the Lord, manifests, he disappears because it is, it turns into, like the science says, right? The what is it called, transformation of energies from kinetic to potential. So then this decreases, that increases. So they give that kind of a logical explanation to the energies and the manifestation and the creation of the universe of the Lord. So they say that once all these are created, then the Lord disappears. So that's not true, the Parinamvada. If such a material stone, so he's giving an explanation here in the purport, if such a material stone can maintain its inconceivable energy after producing volumes of gold, certainly the Supreme Personality of Godhead can remain in his original Sachidananda form. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, he acts only through his different energies. So, yeah, let's move on. Shankaracharya states that the theory of transformation presented in the Vedanta Sutra implies that the absolute truth itself is transformed. In this way, the Mayavadi philosophers denigrate Srila Vyasadeva by accusing him of error. So Srila Vyasadeva has said that Janmadhyasya, the verse, he says that everything, he is the supreme absolute truth. Srila Vyasadeva is establishing this, and he's saying that everything comes from the Lord, right, in the Janmadhyasya verse. And but the Lord does not decrease; He is still the supreme absolute truth. So, but the Mayavadi philosophers, Prabhupada, here he explains how they denigrate Srila Vyasadeva by accusing him of error. They thus find fault in the Vedanta Sutra and misinterpret it to try to establish the theory of illusion. So the first verse of the Brahma Sutra is Athato Brahma Jignasa. We must now inquire into the absolute truth. The second verse immediately answers Janmadhyasayatha. So first verse is, it is saying that we have to inquire into the truth. The second verse gives what this absolute truth is, which is the Janmadhyasya verse, which is the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The absolute truth is the original source of everything. Janmadhyasya yathaha does not suggest the original person has been transformed. Rather, it clearly indicates that he produces this cosmic manifestation through his inconceivable energy. This is also clearly explained in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Matta sarvam pravattate. And then so many other different references are given, so beautifully. All of these Shastric statements indicate the transformation of the Lord's energy, not of the Lord himself. Transformation of the Lord's energy is called Parinamvada. However, being very anxious to protect Srila Vyasadeva from criticism, Shankaracharya became a pseudo gentleman and put forward his theory of illusion, Vivartavada. So, since this Parinamvada, because very clearly Vyasadeva is stating that the Lord's energy is transformed, the Lord is not transformed, in any which way, like that he is always the supreme absolute truth. So now Shankaracharya puts across this new Vivartavada theory, which is the theory of illusion. Shankaracharya concocted this meaning of Parinamvada, and by word jugglery, he endeavored very hard to establish Parinamvada as Vivartavada. And then we will see what that is. The theory of illusion can be applied only when the living entity identifies himself with the body. As far as the cosmic manifestation is concerned, it cannot be false, although it is certainly temporary. The living entity is the eternal servant of Krishna, being part and parcel of the Lord. He is constitutionally pure, but due to his contact with material energy, he identifies himself with either the gross or the subtle material body. Such identification is certainly false and constitutes the genuine platform of the theory of illusion. So, this illusion, it applies only at the material level. That's what clearly is being said here. The living entity is eternal. He can never be subjected to the limits of time, as are his gross and subtle bodies. So only the material body, only when he identifies with the material body, the theory of illusion, the Maya theory applies. That's what is being explained. For a living entity to accept this cosmic manifestation as the field for his sense enjoyment is certainly illusory. So that's where the Maya, comes into picture. This material world is the manifestation of the material energy of the Lord. This is explained by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhumi Rapo, the 8 elements, that verse. The material world is the inferior energy of the Supreme Lord, but it is not a fact that the Supreme Lord has been transformed into this material world. The Mayavadi philosophers, devoid of true understanding, have confused the theory of illusion and the theory of cosmic manifestation by word jugglery. The theory of illusion can be applied to a person who identifies himself with the body. The living entity is the superior energy of the Supreme Lord, and the material world is the inferior energy. But however, our Prakriti, both, however, are Prakriti. Although the energies are simultaneously one with the Lord and different from him, the Lord never loses his form due to the transformation of his different energies. Let me move quickly. Yeah, this is another important, very beautiful purport. I thought will, throw some light for us on this topic. The subsidiary vibration, Tattvam Asi, you are the same, is meant. So if we say that the soul is, kind of similar or same to the Ishvara, then what is the difference, right? So we understand, because we have read so much that there's a qualitative and a quantitative difference. So, but let's see how Srila Prabhupada explains it beautifully here. The subsidiary vibration, Tattvam Asi, you are the same, is meant for the understanding of the living entity, but the principal vibration is Omkara. Not caring for Omkara, Shankaracharya has stressed the vibration Tattvam Asi. So the Pranava mantra is the important mantra. The Omkara is important for any living entity to attain the Lord. But instead of that, Shankaracharya has stressed the vibration Tattvam Asi. And by saying this, what Shankaracharya says, that thou art that, you are the same. So by stressing on this, the Mayavad say that you are the same as the Supreme Brahman and you will become that in the end of life. But that's not what it means. It's only going to say that it is, the living entity is very similar in characteristics. Like it's a living entity, right? It's a Jiva Tattva, is a spiritual entity. It's not a material entity. So it's similar in characteristics to the Supreme Lord, but the Lord is in, greater proportion, and the living entity is a minute, like infinitesimal particle, like that the spirit soul is. So that's what is supposed to be the purport of Tattvam Asi, that you are not the material body. So when Shankaracharya is trying to say, when the Vedas say Tattvam Asi, it's not referring that you are the Supreme Brahman. No, it's saying that you're not the material body, but you're a spirit soul, very much similar in composition to the Supreme Lord. So we'll see how beautifully it's been explained. Tattvam Asi is accepted as a primary vibration by one who does not accept Pranava, the transcendental sound, incarnation of the holy name of the Lord, as the chief principle in the Vedic literature. By word jugglery, Shankaracharya tried to create an illusory representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his relationship with the living entities and the cosmic manifestation. Tattvam Asi is a warning. So this is so beautifully Prabhupada has written. It's a warning to the living entity not to mistake the body for the self. So when we say Tattvam Asi, we have to always remember that we are the spirit soul. very similar in nature to the Supreme Lord, very minute though, and we are not the body. So to remind us of the fact that we are not the body, it's a warning, like Srila Prabhupada says. That's how we should think of this Tattvamasi. Therefore, Tattvamasi is especially meant for the conditioned soul. The chanting of Omkara or the Hare Krishna mantra is meant for the liberated soul. Srila Rupa Goswami has said, Ai Mukta Kulair Upasyamanam Namastakavan. Thus, the holy name of the Lord is chanted by the liberated souls. We will see in the further verses today too that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also says the same things. Similarly, Parikshit Maharaja says, Nivrita Tarsher Upagiyamana. Bhagavatam 10:1-4. The holy name of the Lord can be chanted by those who have fully satisfied the material desires or who are fully situated on the transcendental platform and devoid of material desire. The name of the Lord can be chanted by one who is completely freed from material contamination. Shankaracharya has indirectly minimized the value of the principal Vedic mantra Omkara by accepting a subordinate vibration, Tattvam Asi, as the most important Vedic mantra. So we have to understand what this actually means. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu criticized Shankaracharya's Sharirika Bhashya as imaginary, and he pointed out hundreds of faults in it. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, because he is from the the Mayavad lineage, and he presented unlimited opposition to it. But then, in spite of all this, somehow Lord Chaitanya, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he convinces Bhattacharya and he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord. So let's move on. Oh my God, I didn't do anything. Let's move on only towards the Yeah, we'll move on with the other verses. Can you see my screen, or I don't know what I'm saying? 1 second, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, we can see Mataji, verse 3.3.4.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure what screen I was sharing. यद्यपि है जगते ईश्वर भेद नाही सर्व माया परिपूर्ण आचे सर्वथानि. Although there is no difference between the Supreme Lord and this material world, He is present everywhere as the complete whole. And then Tabuto Mahaite se Hayachia Miyama Haite Nahi Kabhu Hayacha to me. I don't know, I'm reading it the wrong way. Still I have come from you. You have never come from me. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is still explaining and continuing with that wave and the ocean verse, which we just saw a couple of verses ago. येन समुद्रेरसे तरङ्गलोके बाले तरङ्गेर समुद्रन hayako na kale. As people say, those waves of the ocean, they will never say the ocean of the waves, right? This makes very, it's easy to understand, right? We always refer to the smaller one, okay? Like what comes of the waves are dependent on the ocean, right? Without the ocean, the waves will not exist. So the waves of the ocean, but nobody says the ocean of the waves. अतएव जगत तुम्हारा तुम्ही पिता इह लोके परलोके तुम्ही से रक्षिता. Therefore, you are the proprietor and father of the universe. You are the protector in this life and the next. Commentary: the word Rakshita means the protector. I have some notes for these. I just don't know. Because of the time, if I should be, going through all this. It's already 10:56. So we see that, let me quickly, very briefly explain what Srila Prabhupada, how explains that, we are all like parts and parcels of the Lord. The Lord pervades everywhere, but again, we are, parts and parcels of Him. And this is taken from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 13.3, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. There are two kinds of kshetrajna or living beings. We earlier saw, right, in the purport that there are two kinds of Vishnu Tattva and is described, like, and then the Krishna and Vishnu Tattva, and then two kind of living beings, which are the liberated, eternally liberated and eternally conditioned souls. So one is the individual living being, and the other is the supreme living being. The ordinary living being knows about his body to some extent, but the supreme Paramatma knows the condition of all the bodies. The individual living being is localized, and the supreme Paramatma is all pervading. This shloka, the word Kshetrajna, refers to an ordinary living being, not the supreme living being. The ordinary living being is of two kinds, Nityabadha or Nityamukta. One is eternally conditioned and the other is eternally liberated. The eternally liberated living beings are in the Vaikuntha Jagat, the spiritual world, and they never fall into the material world. Those in the material world are conditioned souls, Nityabadha. The Nityabadhas can become liberated by controlling the mind, because the cause of conditioned life is the mind. When the mind is trained and the soul is not under the mind's control, the soul can be liberated even in this material world. When it is liberated, one is called Jivan Mukta. A Jivan Mukta knows how he has become conditioned. Therefore, he tries to purify himself and return home back to Godhead. The eternally conditioned soul is eternally conditioned because he is controlled by the mind. The conditioned state and liberated state are compared to sleeping, unconscious state, and the awakened state. Those who are sleeping and unconscious are eternally conditioned, but those who are awake understand that they are eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Therefore, even in this material world, they engage in Krishna's service. As confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami, Iha yasya hare dasi, Jivan Mukta sa uchyate, that verse. If one takes to Krishna's service, he is liberated, even though he appears to be a conditioned soul within this material world. So, in any condition, one is to be considered liberated if his only business is to serve Krishna. So, let me go and read this. There was some other things. Yeah. There was something else from this purport I wanted to share. Or maybe for want of time, I'll just move on to the verse because it's already 11. Okay. यहाँ है तेहाय जन्म ये करे पालाना तारे ये न भजे भज हाया से jana. Anyone who does not worship the person from whom he is born and by whom he is maintained is fit to be rejected. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says that, he clearly he's talking about this particular, like I said, this sutram of Srila Shankaracharya, where he states that the Supreme Lord is Lord Krishna himself and he is the source of everything. So he says, one who does not worship the person from whom he is born and maintained is fit to be rejected. So one has to worship the Supreme Lord. And then he goes on to say, Ye sankarera vakya ye abhipraya eha najaniya matha ki karye mudhaya. These are the statements and intentions of Shankaracharya. Why should one shave his head without understanding this? So he says, he is telling Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that you're too young. It doesn't appear like, you have seen anything in the world or acquired much knowledge. You're just dancing and singing around and want to do devotional service. So sannyas means it's a totally different game altogether. You have to be reading the Vedanta Sutras and trying to understand all these Vedas and things like that. It's not just doing Sankirtana. For that you don't need to shave your head. And even if you didn't understand all these different teachings of Shankaracharya, the Vedanta Sutra and everything. So how come you have at such a young age, even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya objects that, the sannyas, why he was given at 24 years of age like that. It's definitely not an age, and we'll see in future verses why he thinks so. So he said, why should one shave his head without understanding this? So he says that the study of this Vedanta and all that is very important. He's trying to preach to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like that. A commentary. Another reading for Vakya is Shloka. So Shloka, because like I said, this is actually taken from that stotram, we will see later, you know. Sannyasi haya niravadhi narayana balibeka prema bhakti yoge anukshana. A sannyasi should constantly chant the name of Narayana with love and devotion. So what Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is saying is that, you know, the sannyasis, they come to that level of that, you know, they work on a mental platform like these Mayavad sannyasis. They are ekadandi sannyasis, as we've seen previously. And, you know, they even remove the Brahman thread and the shikha, they shave off totally the head, like it's being mentioned so many times. So, you know, they have no duty per se to perform except like to meditate and think of the Lord, and like that continuously, you know, think of the Lord. So, so that's what Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is saying. But then with the Vaishnava Sampradaya, the sannyasis can still, you know, they still do their Gayatri and they perform some, you know, duties which are required like that. And they don't shave off their shikha also like that. So they do perform some duties like the Vaishnava sannyasis. But then the Mayavad sannyasis, the Ekadandi sannyasis, they totally renounce and they consider, that's why, you know, they address each other as Narayana. A sannyasi should constantly chant the name of Narayana with love and devotion. Na bhujiya Shankaracharya bhakti chadi matha mudha ya dukha paya. Those do not understand Shankaracharya's intention and give up devotional service suffer even after shaving their heads. So he says that Shankaracharya, you know, like I said, he's deriving all his arguments from that particular sotram and saying that those who do not understand that Shankaracharya's intention was, you know, like to chant the name of the Lord continuously, and then they give up this chanting of the devotional service after shaving their heads, are pseudo sannyasis. Like in yesterday's class where we saw, he says, right, what is the point? You know, you will just get name, fame, pride and such things if you shave your head and take off your jani, like the sacred thread, and people are going to fall at your feet. So is that why you want to take sannyas? He questions like that, right? So he thinks that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is just attracted to the sannyasa because he's going to get a lot of fame and respect like that. So he says, you shouldn't be doing that. अतएव तोमारा से कहीं आमी हे न पथे प्रविष्ट है लाके न तुमी. Therefore I ask you, why have you taken to such a path? यदि कृष्ण भक्ति योग्य करीब उद्धारा तबे शिखा सूत्र त्यागे कौन लभ्यारा. If you wish to deliver the world by distributing devotional service to Lord Krishna, what need is there to give up your shikha and brahmana thread? The commentary says, another reading for Ara, what else? Is Tara, his. यदि बल माधवेंद्र आदि महाभाग तान्हा दो करिया चे शिखा सूत्र त्यागा. You may say that great personalities like Madhavendra Puri have also given up their shikhas and brahmana threads. So we will see why he is quoting this in the next verse. तथापि ह तुम्हारे संन्यास करी बारा हे समय के मते हाईवे अधिकारा. Still you are not ready yet to accept sannyasa. So he says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is too young, and so he should not. You can say that Madhavendra Puri, all of them took sannyas, but you are too young, you know, you shouldn't be doing this. And then he goes on to say this. Se saba mahanta shesha tribhagavaya se Gramya rasa bhunjiya se karila sannyase. All those great souls relished material enjoyment and took sannyas. after 3/4 of their life, like 3/4 of their life, usually 100 years is considered our lifespan, and 3/4 is 75. Like they say sannyas at the age of 80, right? Usually 75 to 80. So after 3/4 of their life had passed, the phrase gramya rasa bhunjiya means after relishing material enjoyment. So this kind of importance, is in the Mayavad circles, the importance is given to the Purushartha, basically to enjoy all these, like before dharma, artha, kama, moksha, like that, or the worldly pleasures before you actually take to um, sannyasa. Let me quickly try to read something what Prabhupada says about this. I had made several notes. I'm cutting short here and there. 2023. Yeah. This one. Purushartha means material religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and at the end, the attempt to become one with the Supreme. This oneness with the Supreme is called Kaivalyam by the monist. But according to Patanjali, this Kaivalyam is an internal or transcendental potency by which the living entity becomes aware of his constitutional position. In the words of Lord Chaitanya, this state of affairs is called Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, the constitution, when one becomes aware of the constitutional position, or in other words, one becomes aware of the self, like science of self-realization, which Prabhupada says, this clearance is actually liberation, or bhava maha davagni nirvapanam. The theory of nirvana also preliminary corresponds with this principle. So this is actually clearing your impure mind. In the Bhagavatam 2.10.6, this is called Swarupena Vyavasthitihi. The Bhagavad Gita also confirms the situation in this verse. After nirvana or material cessation, there is the manifestation of spiritual activities or devotional service to the Lord, known as Krishna consciousness. In the words of the Bhagavatam, Swarupena Vyavasthitihi, this is the real life of the living entity. Maya or illusion is the condition of spiritual life contaminated by material infection. Liberation from this material infection does not mean destruction of the original eternal position of the living entity. Patanjali also accepts this by his words, Kaivalyam Swarupa Pratishtha Va Chiti Shakter Iti. This Chiti Shakti or transcendental pleasure. So this Chit Shakti or transcendental pleasure is the real life. So we have to transcend or go to the spiritual platform. So it doesn't mean that you give up. Kaivalyam doesn't mean that you give up the material body and just merge and become nothing. But there's a further concept, which is the Chit Shakti or the transcendental pleasure. So that is the aim of that is real life. This is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra as Anandamayo Abhyasat. This natural transcendental pleasure is the ultimate goal of yoga and is easily achieved by execution of devotional service or bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga, okay, it says it will be described in that. So a lot of such details are given about how we can understand the swarupa, or what happens when you get to the position of understanding who you're. So after the self-realization, we have to engage in devotional service and offer devotional service to the Lord, and that's when you can experience this transcendental pleasure, as it is mentioned here. So that is the aim of the real life, not like you give up this material body and you understand that you're not this material body and then try to merge with the Brahman. No, that is not what should be done. So that's what is being very nicely explained here. We'll move back to the verse. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says that, why didn't you, you're too young, you're only 24. And usually around the age of 25, it's considered that you enter into Grahastha ashram, right? And 50 Vanaprastha, and then around 80 or so, So like they say, 3/4 of the life, 75 or 80, you take sannyas ashram. And then the vanaprastha, 20 years, you prepare for the sannyas ashram. Try to give up all your material desires, everything one by one, family attachments, everything, and try to prepare like that. So he says, you're just 24, and what is this? You have taken sannyasa. So he says, all those great souls relished material enjoyment and took sannyasa. Yeah, this one we read. यवन प्रवेश मात्र सकले तुम्हारा के मते वहाइवा संन्यासे अधिकार. You've just entered the prime of your life. So how can you be qualified to take sannyasa? So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he definitely has a bone to pick with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taking sannyas at such a young age, right? It's too young, and he sees that he's such a beautiful young boy, and he just cannot believe why he would do that. So, paramarthe sannyase ke करीबे तुम्हारे bhakti hai ache tomara sharire. What is the use of accepting sannyasa when you've already developed such devotional sentiments? He says that you're already chanting and dancing beautifully. So why do you want to take sannyasa? योगींद्रादि सबेर ये दुर्लभ प्रसाद तब केने करिया छे ए माता प्रमादा. This devotional service is rarely attained by even the best of the yogis. So why have you made such a mistake? He says the devotional service is very rarely, right, attained. So what's that verse? Kashchin mam veti tatvataha. शूनी भक्ति योग सार्वभौमेर वचाना बड़ सुखी हाई लगोरा चंद्र नारायण. After hearing Sarvabhauma's glorification of devotional service, Lord Gaurachandra, he becomes greatly pleased, because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he sees that, this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a Vaishnava sannyasi, so he wants to give him, and also because he's taken sannyas at such a young age, he's not very happy that why he did that. And he says that if you just want to propagate devotional service, you don't need to take this sannyasa, this thing order. And if you're not keen on reading like the Vedantas and stuff like that, so what is the use of this diksha? He says like that. So we should maybe pause here for today. And Matajis, I'm sure I may have made a lot of mistakes in especially the last few verses. I just rushed. I prepared some notes, but it can go on forever. So very, very beautiful verses. There's a lot to understand from each verse. Like Prabhupada has so mercifully given us so much, in his books, that we can speak on these verses for a long time. So please forgive me if I made mistakes, and please feel free to correct me. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Antakuti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
class, Mataji. Hare Bol. So today's class was like about like how the Mayavadis interpret with the Vishnu philosophy and the difference between. So yes, of course, even I think recently one of them close to by means like my neighbors. So they also said that we also read Bhagavatam, we also read Bhagavad Gita. They also go for classes. So they said, and they said that same like what we see in these scriptures, right? So the Mayavadis say that we are all one. So the same way she said, and that was the first time experience for me with these persons who are Mayavadis, and then I just try to tell them. So, but they also, yes, of course, today we saw, right? So, how nicely it was said that Mayavadis also follow the scriptures, they also follow the Vaishnava culture, but still they feel that I'm also, they have the feel that I'm also Narayan. So, that is a subtle difference that they have. So, which I experienced recently, like just last week with this lady. So
Yeah, I
so
wouldn't
even
call it
it
a subtle
was
difference. It's a huge major difference and deviation. I mean, that's how I look at it.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, Mataji.
yeah, it's definitely not subtle. I mean,
Yeah, not subtle, sorry.
it ruins, like Prabhupada says, it spoils everything, literally. So it's a huge, huge, gaffe. Yeah, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Yeah, not subtle, of course. So then I tried to explain them with this Prabhupada's analogy of saying the ocean water and the cup of water. So they accepted, but still, no, we are all one. So then I said, yes, you be with your philosophy, I said. I just moved away. So thank you so much, Mataji. Very nice class today. Hare Krishna. So, devotees,
Okay.
any questions or realizations for Mataji? Or otherwise, Mataji will sing a bhajan for us if it's okay with everyone.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances, Shashla Prabhupada. Thank you so much for taking so much efforts to put this together, both in PowerPoint and also screening the verses and connecting it to Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Mataji, finally, what is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's take? He seems to be glorifying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also for being in the path of bhakti, and I understand he's discouraging him to take sannyas early. But besides that, what is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's understanding? Because somehow it appears that in some of these verses, his understanding seems to be quite conflicting with the traditional Mayavad understanding.
Yeah, like I said, this is the same question I also had, like, because it does appear like he's preaching Vaishnavism, right? And he's like saying that you already attend devotional service, so what else do you need? Why do you need sannyas and all this? Why do you need to remove the shikha and all these things? And yeah, so two things that I understood, Mataji, from this is that one is, he understood, like, when he pays obeisances, that's why I quoted that reference in the beginning, when he pays obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he says, Namo Narayana, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replies by saying, Krishna Matelastu. So he understands this is a Vaishnava sannyasi. And so he understands that, and also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu submits before him and says that I want to learn the art of devotional service and preach. So he's trying to preach to that, effect to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And particularly, like I said, if when we go over that stotram, that Vishnu Shatpadi, you will understand, like, he's kind of taking most of the things, like the protection he speaks of, and then the other things which are spoken in the subsequent verses are actually taken from that stotram. So he uses that stotram basically to preach to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that what you're doing is already good, and so what's in use for you to become, because he realizes that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not too keen on, the Vedanta Sutra and things like that. The other explanation, I consulted with a senior devotee because I too had the same questions, Preeti. And what she told was, this is, the account by a totally different acharya, like Vrindavan Das Thakur has heard this. His sources of information are different from what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's source of information is, when he wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there may be some things, and this talk of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya for 7 days is not described in detail in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So she said what Mataji told was, there could be different sources of information the authors have worked on, and if we find something, which is not reconciling, we should perhaps stick to what Prabhupada says and, take it from there, because he's our acharya like that. So that's one way to look at it, Preeti.
Yes, Mataji. Yeah. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one thing that you said actually rang a bell in my mind. When you said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed that his interest was to preach Krishna consciousness, that is when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, okay, this is good for you and you can preach. You're not so serious about
Yeah, I think it
Mayavad.
comes, right? One of those verses, Preeti, where he submits to him, right? Before this 40 something, I don't know the exact verse. It's in the very beginning, I think he says.
He says something like, I want to chant and deliver the world or something.
Yeah, he says devotional service, something like that. One second, let me go back. It's in the beginning of this chapter. See, although I came to meet see Jagannatha, my main purpose was to meet you. Material bondage. You are fully empowered by Lord Krishna, so you are able to award one loving devotional service to Krishna. So he says to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that you are empowered by Lord Krishna, so you have to give me this devotional service. And it says in this, in the chapter 3, earlier, the 13th verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12, realizing that Sarvabhauma's desire for the four objectives of life was simply deceitful. Like he understood that Sarvabhauma is a very great scholar. Sri Gaura Sundara also deceitfully told him that he had come to Nilachala to take instruction from Sarvabhauma, and that Sarvabhauma had the power to bestow on one loving devotional service to Krishna. So this is what he wants to learn from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu conveys it to him right in the beginning. Therefore, I take shelter of you. Do whatever you consider as beneficial. So that's why he is alluding to all those things, of
Makes sense, actually. Yeah.
So he says, what rules and regulations instruct me? All these things he goes on to say. He surrenders and becomes disciple. Like that.
Yeah, so in all probability,
Let me
only
share
after
that one.
this. I
Sorry.
mean, I remember this verse. But in all probability, Mataji, so it appears that this conversation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, was more like, okay, this is what you desire to do, and this is what I'm going to tell you. You stick with what you're doing, something like that.
Yeah.
Just like how in today's world, also sometimes when we have conflicting philosophical affiliations, still we try to just tolerate each other and say, yeah, whatever you're doing is fine, something like that.
Yeah, because he sees that he's a young boy, right? I mean, that is also, that's how I understood from what is given here, Preeti. He sees that this is just 24-year-old boy and he's happily singing and dancing. So, but he also sees that he has already got that bhava, like he sees all that ecstatic symptoms in when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu faints and falls. He sees that he has all those symptoms of a true Bhagavata, like somebody who is truly into the path of bhakti. So that also he confirms to him that first he says Krishna Matiratu, and then also that ecstatic symptoms. So he says you already have it. So now why are you coming into sannyas? And what are you trying to do? Just be happy with what you're doing, kind of.
And so it appears that only after this they begin to converse. This is not there in Chaitanya Bhagavat, but in Chaitanya Charitamrita we see that they begin to converse about the Ved. He desires to learn the Vedanta Sutras, and then Sarvabhauma starts speaking about in the eyes of Shankara's Bhashya, and then later he says that this is like the cloud that is covering the sun or whatever, and then they have the Atmarama conversation.
Yeah, after this, if you see, like I think around 58 something verse, like that will come. He will ask, okay, now what you want to hear? Sarvabhauma will ask. So that time he'll say, I want to hear some Bhagavatam from you. Something like that comes here, Preeti. One of these verses after, not 55, we did till 65, right? So after that, one of those, I think the Chinmay may cover those.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think, this makes so much more sense, Mataji. It was very difficult for us to understand what really is happening. It was a big confusion. But the perspective that you gave makes a lot of sense. And I would rather stick to this understanding hereafter for this chapter. So thank you for clarifying that, Mataji. Haribol. That is what I was looking forward to for today. And thank you so much. Haribol.
And thank you, Preeti, for giving me the opportunity to read and share whatever I know. But please do correct me if I made mistakes. But this is what I understood. Like I'm trying to see where he says, after this he will ask him, like you explain now some Bhagavatam to me. So that time that was that Atmaram words and all will come now. But it comes after this only.
Right, Mataji.
Okay. Chinmay understood a lot yesterday. I hope she has something to
So,
share.
Chinmay Mataji, do you agree with what Mataji was telling today?
அவதான் ஞானம் கொடுத்தா எனக்கு
I don't know where she is.
Krishna Mataji's.
Chinmay and I were having a joke yesterday, so
Yeah.
pulling her leg.
Mataji. Very beautiful, very scholarly class. I love Mataji.
No,
So,
Mataji, our question to you is, so do you accept the thought process what Mataji was presenting?
yes, Mataji, why are you asking? Yes.
No, if you have a different opinion, I thought you can just voice it,
I
that's all.
totally
Yeah,
can.
because we all are trying to understand Chinmay, so we would like your inputs too. That's what Preeti is getting at.
No, Mataji, I really understand. I mean, I agree with what you are saying. You were bringing Prabhupada's purpose where Prabhupada says what exactly is Mayavada theory, right? And about the Kaivalya thing. So yes, Mataji. For them,
No. No, so what Mataji explained today is that as far as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is concerned, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as far as Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is concerned, he's talking like this.
It's like sounding like Vaishnavism. Preeti's question is that sounding like Vaishnavism, not like Mayavad. So how do we understand that, he actually spoke Mayavad like that? So what I, from the verse in the beginning, I showed Preeti where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Sarvabhauma to instruct him in the science of devotion. He says that you are the person who can give me love of Godhead, like in devotion. So he mentions that. And then Sarvabhauma also sees, like I gave like two other references from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where when Sarvabhauma addresses Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Namo Narayanaya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replies, instead of saying Namo Narayanaya, because that's how Mayavad sannyasis greet each other, but he says Krishna Matirastu. So immediately it's mentioned in CC that Sarvabhauma understood that this is a Vaishnava sannyasi, he is not a Mayavad. So like that. And then he also sees the ecstatic symptoms of devotion, in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he faints and falls in Jagannath temple. And he sees, because he's a scholar, he knows that these are symptoms of ecstasy in devotional service. So all these facts go to corroborate that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, on the Vaishnava path, though he took sannyasi from the Mayavad Sampradaya. So, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in all these verses is trying to say, just stick to it. You're already there. You have devotional service. So why are you taking this sannyas diksha? You're too young, he says, and he gives these other reasons. You already arrived. So what is the need for you to take? You're anyway not interested in reading Vedanta Sutra and all this. So why are you doing this? That's how he questions. So that's what I understood, Mataji, from all the verses which you have read so far. So Preeti is asking if you concur with that or you have some other thoughts.
Mataji, I just have one question. So you're saying Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya saw that he is a Vaishnava and he preached in that line. Like he said, you be a Vaishnava. But then there are some verses which say, where he says, Mayavad Sannyasa is like higher than what you're doing, right? Doesn't he infer to that?
Yeah, because also we saw the pastime of Prakashan and Saraswati, right? When he sees Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chanting and dancing, he thinks of him very low, like what is the sannyasi doing? He's just chanting, and he thinks that this is not a done thing for a sannyasi. Like they look upon it as a little lower, right? Like that, the bhakti as a means to liberation, and not like bhakti as the supreme thing. And so Prakashan, that's why I brought up that pastime of Prakashan and the Saraswati also, where Prakashan and the Saraswati also asked the same question. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that I'm a fool in this Kali Yuga, I cannot read scriptures, Vedanta, Vedas, Vedanta Sutra. I cannot understand. I'm a fool. So my spiritual master told me, you just chant. So that's all I can do. So that is something Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives us. But then Prakashan and the Saraswati asks them again that why do you think that in spite of chanting, you can do chanting too, and you can also read Vedanta Sutra. So why are you not keen on reading Vedanta Sutra? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reveals his heart and he says that, the Vedanta Sutra has been grossly misinterpreted by Sri Shankaracharya, and that's the popular commentary. And I don't want to go there because it spoils the whole mood. And so the Mayavad sannyasis, they look at Vedanta as something really higher, and they think that chanting and this thing anybody can do. So he thought that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is already doing that chanting and dancing. So he thinks that he
So
should.
thinks Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is on an inferior path.
That's how the Mayavads look at it.
So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also feels that way. He's on an inferior path, so you continue doing this.
I mean, he does recognize he's a special soul, but then he says you already, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explicitly says, right, I want devotional service. I want the love of Godhead and devotion. Can you please give me that? He asked Sarvabhauma. Like I just read those verses for Preeti. So in the beginning of this chapter. So Sarvabhauma, he picks those, like I said, the shlokas which I mentioned are from Vishnu Shatpadi Stotram, which actually extol or praise the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like they're such beautiful verses by Sri Shankaracharya, which actually say that Krishna is the supreme absolute truth and everything comes from him. And I surrender to you. You are the one who can give nirbhaya, like free from fear or anxiety. So very beautiful 6 verses. So he takes that part of Shankara's work and tries to preach to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, I mean to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he understands this is a sannyasi who's a Vaishnava, basically.
Beautiful, Mataji. Beautiful. I get it now. It's very nice. And I was just thinking how the Lord plays tricks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the one, like the very beautiful verses, Vishnu Shatpadi. Very nice. Like this is the 3rd one. This is also quoted, this verse. This verse was, we just saw this was Satya Pibheda Pagame. This was there in, quoted here also in Chaitanya Bhagvat, and it is also quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas also. So both these verses are, this sloka, from this stotram, this Vishnu Shatpadi stotram is actually taken from this one by Shankaracharya. And it's very nice if you see all the pastimes and the meaning. So the meaning of transliteral meaning of this is, like his prayer, and he says that like the wave and the ocean, which we just saw in today's class, and how I will always be the wave and you will be the ocean, and I'll be dependent on the ocean, for my existence. The wave thinks that way. So all those things are described where the jiva is different from the Ishvara. So that kind of this is in this stotram, Srila Shankaracharya is explaining that Lord Shiva is the Lord Vishnu is the Narayana is the is the Supreme Personality, like that. So
Thank you so much, Mataji, for a very nice discussion. So I think the whole class, we again did a very good recap by doing this discussion. So thank you so much for this, Mataji. So finally, the understanding is like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He knew that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a Vaishnava sannyasi, but he stood on his path, right? So like Prakashananda Saraswati, when he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he thought that they are very low than them themselves, right? So that's how even Sarvabhauma also thought. That's what you meant, right?
Sarvabhauma necessarily did not think of him as very low. He saw that this is a very effulgent person, but in the Vaishnava Sampradaya. So he thinks, because it's not mentioned anywhere that he thought low of him, and so I wouldn't say that. But so he thinks that he's already into devotional service, and so just be good and happy with it. You don't have to, what was the need of sannyas, like that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you. A very nice discussion. So if you have time for 2 minutes.
Yeah, I can sing this stotram. It's very nice. That's why I just thought, somebody told me to sing in the beginning, so or recite this.
Mataji, it's me.
Is it too late for all of us?
No. I said I told in the beginning also. I said that you will sing a bhajan for us. Can please go ahead,
Let's
Mataji.
quickly do it, Mataji, and then we'll go there and read the shloka, because I'm not able to sing with the Sanskrit. I need the English, the verses. अविनयमपनय विष्णु दमय मनः शमय विषय मृगतृष्णां भूतादयां विस्तारय तारय संसारसागरतः दिव्यधुनी मकरन्दे परिमलपरिभोगसच्चिदानन्दे श्रीपतिपदारविन्दे भवभयखेदाचिदे वन्दे सत्यपि भेदापगमे नाथ तवाहं नमामकीनस्त्वं सामुद्रो हि तरङ्गः क्वचन समुद्रो न तारङ्गः नगभिदनुज शशिदृष्टे दृष्टे भवति प्रभवति न भवति किं भवति रस्कारः मत्स्यादिभिरवतारैः अवतारवता सदा वसुधां परमेश्वर परिपाल्यो भवतापभितोऽहं दामोदर गुणमन्दिर सुन्दरवदनारविन्द गोविन्द भवजलधिमथन मन्दर परमं दरमपनय त्वं मे नारायण करुणामय शरणं करवाणि तावकौ चरणौ इति षट्पतिमदीये वदन सरोजे सदा वसतु. So it's very beautiful meanings are there, Mataji, for each of these lines. Let's see where it is. Yeah. O Vishnu, remove arrogance, subdue my mind, and calm the thirst for worldly desires. Expand compassion towards all beings and guide me across the ocean of worldly existence. Then, in the divine nectar of bliss, with the fragrance of true existence, I bow to the lotus feet of the Lord, which dispels the sorrows of existence. And this is the verse which we saw today. O Lord, even in the dissolution of differences, I'm yours. I mean, this meaning is not correct. Let's skip this one. The other meaning is, O Lord, who uplifts the mountains and protects the kins of demons. Those who see you are blessed. Whether you manifest or not, what remains unfulfilled in your presence? O Supreme Lord, who takes various forms, you are always the protector of the earth through your incarnations. I am afraid of the fears. So you see, it talks about protection, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also talks of protection. I'm afraid of the fears of existence. Please protect me. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, after the wave and the ocean thing, he says, right, he is the protector and one who recognizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because he gives, everything comes from him, should also pray to him, and then he protects. He says that. O Govinda, the embodiment of all virtues, whose beautiful lotus-like face shines with grace, please help me overcome the ocean of existence. O Narayana, the embodiment of compassion, I take refuge at your lotus feet. May my heart always dwell at your lotus-like face. Well, that is the meaning of this verse. Though I don't totally concur with whatever meaning has been said in this, but we will take the meaning which our acharyas have given us today in the Caitanya Bhaagvata. So, yeah, like this one. Although there is no difference between the ocean and its wave, the existence of the waves is dependent on the ocean. The ocean is never dependent on the waves. So this is the commonly understood meaning of this verse. Mataji, is it okay to pause here? I'm sorry, I took too much
Hari
time.
bol, Mataji. Yeah, okay, Mataji. Thank you so much for very wonderful class and very nice discussion. And very nicely you sang also, Mataji. It was really very beautiful with your voice. And so what is it? Vishnu Shatpati, right?
Yeah, Vishnu Shatpadi Stotram.
Very nice, Mataji, very nice. I'm hearing for first time, maybe for me, it's first time I'm hearing. So very
Yeah,
nice,
even
South Indian touch.
Yeah, even I know after I saw these verses in the Caitanya Bhaagvata, I went to look up what this is talking about. Like, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has kindly mentioned, like this in the purport. So that gave me an idea of, where it is coming from. Like the Satyapi Bhedapagame. So I just Googled this and I saw that this has been also mentioned in Haribhakta Vilasa, and it's actually part of Vishnu Shatpadi Stotra.
Wow. So nice, Mataji. Very nice South Indian touch also in the song. Means the bhajan. Thank you, Mataji, once again. And with your permission, we can end the call here. Dear devotees, let's pay our obeisances to Mataji. Vancha kalpadrupasha kripasindu pevacha
Patidanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah.
Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai,
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Jai.
Her Grace Shukha Sagari Mataji ki jai.
Jai. Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you